Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. We want to apologize for our delay in starting. We had some technical difficulties, but alhamdulillah, everything is up and running now. And inshallah, we're going to continue the show, taking in your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp. The QR code should be in the corner over there. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah, the Sheikh and I will be able to discuss. If you want to call into the studios, 0203 515 0199 to get through, and inshallah, we'll be able to help you in your inquiry. I'm your host, Mohsin Shia, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'a. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. How are you doing this evening, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
MashaAllah. So let us kick off, Sheikhna. How do we remove the dirt on the turba or mahar, which may form a mess when prostrating?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. It's mandatory for the individual who wants to prostrate on the muhr or the turba that there should be no obstacles on the muhr. For example, if you had a long hair, for example, you have to remove this hair and prostrate your forehead, forehead skin on the turba, on the muhr itself. Or for example, if you have this muhr became, let's say, there's a mass of, let's say, oily or dirt, excessive dirt on it, then you have to remove it by a paper sand, for example.
Yeah, Sheikh, we've seen with turbas, it should be a nice light beige color, very similar to the sofa here. But over the years and time, with sweat and moisture and God knows what, it gets darker. Exactly. The argument is that does that form a layer that that stops the forehead touching the turba?
The darkness or the color wouldn't prevent from the sajda.
Okay.
But if it produces like a mass of oil or other dirt, excessive
a clear
dirt,
barrier.
Exactly, an obstacle barrier, then you have to remove it with the sandpaper, for example.
Okay, fair enough. Sheikh, we've got some questions here coming from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Please, is it true that when we let Imam Jawad alayhi salam, Imam Jawad alayhi salam, when his ring fell on the floor, we have to pray his salah?
I don't understand that.
I don't understand neither. I've never heard of anything like this. If you could rephrase your question, inshallah, we'll be able to help you with that one. Another one from WhatsApp. Can a Muslim man marry a woman that believes in God but has no religion? Asking this because nothing is said about this in the Quran. Is it permissible or not? We call these people, Sheikh, agnostics. They specifically don't have a creed or a madhab as such, but they believe in a power. They believe that, yes, there is something out there which is greater than me. I do believe in a superior power, superior being. But I don't call it God, or I don't worship it, or I don't follow these ahkam rules or laws, or I don't follow certain prophets, or I don't believe in prophets, or this or whatever. Are we allowed to marry such people?
What ulama mentioned in their fiqh books, that you only can get married to a non-Muslim who is a kitabi, from Ahlul Kitab.
Yes.
The Jews, the Christians, the Zoroastrians, Zardusht.
Yeah.
Other than that, you cannot get married to. Because it's not just to believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, to believe in His books, the holy books, the prophets, for example. So that would be sufficient if they are Ahlul Kitab, for example. So other than that, then there's ishkal, of course.
Sheikh, if one delays the Isha prayer beyond midnight without any justification and in disobedience, what would be the intention, qada or ada?
Yeah, if somebody intentionally delays his Isha prayer, let's say there's a match going on, World Cup or whatever, and it takes 3-4 hours, and they intentionally delay it. Or they, let's say, have a night shift work, for example. Yeah. So intentionally to delay the Salatul Isha, for example, till after midnight, or let's say an hour before Fajr time, then as a obligatory precaution, you have to pray it neither qada nor ada. So qurbat Allah ta'ala, that's it. And some ulama would mention even the Maghrib is the same thing. If you didn't pray Maghrib and Isha together, same thing. You shouldn't pray qada or ada as well.
Fair enough. Sheikh, if a young person who is near the age of adolescence says he has made something tahir and his word was reassuring, would his word be accepted?
Yes, indeed. If somebody can be assured and can trust this boy or girl, for example, in this discerning age, for example, for the purity or najasa of something, then they can trust them and take their word. Yeah.
Question from WhatsApp here, Sheikhna. Why do we have the Damam during Jalus in India where it's not in a culture there, where it's not a culture there? I'm not sure. You'll have to speak to the Indians and ask them why they're using the Damam. But Sheikhna, the Damam during Jalus, is that allowed? Is that okay?
What's the dammam?
I think it's a drum, isn't it?
If you mean the dammam that we use in Iraq,
Yeah.
then that's allowed because that's a war, let's say, instrument, and not a musicless instrument. So you beat on it to inform people that there's something happening. For example, there's a azad, there's a
Is it to bring
warning.
attention?
Exactly. So it's not like it's part of the war instruments they used to use to warn the other side that we are coming for the battle and so forth, or the battle started, for example.
I think, yeah, I mean, we've seen it in old war films as well. Because there's a war going on, it's hard to shout instructions.
Exactly.
So the drum would be the they would listen, and that would be telling them what to do.
Exactly.
We need to go forward, or we need to come back, or we need to go on the left or right, or so forth. They do it like that. Another question here from WhatsApp. My friend has a query. How can a person stop masturbating? Fantastic question. Maybe you could start by refraining from doing it. But Sheikhna, for those who have such habits and so forth, not just masturbating, but there's other haram habits people have. Maybe it might be alcohol, maybe it might be gambling, maybe it's backbiting or telling lies and so forth. Any haram act that people do, Sheikhna, what is a good way to help them from stopping?
In some cases, the ulama say that the marriage becomes wajib in this case because you are committing a haram, for example, a forbidden act. So to avoid this forbidden act, you have to get married in somehow. Prepare, arrange for the purpose of marriage. Now, it could be the short-term marriage solution, a temporary solution, let's say short-term solution. But in anyhow, the one should look forward for a permanent marriage so they can have the pleasure of this marriage for years and years. You can't just have a short-term pleasure or marriage and then you leave it and then you get stuck in terms of how to get, to arrange for the second marriage, for example. So they have to get, a permanent marriage, organized so they can basically complete their faith. That the hadith says the one who gets married, he has completed half of his faith. Then he needs to look for the other half of his belief, which is to do with haram, halal, aqaida, and so forth.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, from YouTube, can we get slaves if there is a war going on?
Slavery almost was abolished long time ago, and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they tried their best to buy the slaves and free them, educate them and free them. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, he had the opportunity to buy slaves in dozens, maybe in hundreds, and he used to educate them for the whole year. And on the eve of the Eid al-Fitr, he used to free them and give them money and ilm and everything, even marry them and release them. And that's why you see the tashayyu' of Ahlul Bayt was spread around Africa, East Asia, and so forth. So I don't think we have any slaves in this time. Any specific questions from the Ahkam SOS. And are these wars for example, eligible, for example, wars with the permission from the Ahkam SOS? Truly, we have to see how it works.
From WhatsApp, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can I keep a cat or a hamster and a rabbit in my house? Okay, cat, hamster, and rabbit. Cats, we know, Sheikhna, they're not najis. However, if cat hair is on you, it needs to be removed when you're praying.
Yes.
Hamster, rabbit?
I haven't heard something that it's, for example, if it's makruh or something, one needs to look through the books of fiqh. But in overall, to have a living being at home is good. Especially to do with pigeons, birds.
Yeah, birds are encouraged.
Hens, for example. Rooster, these are all encouraged in the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to repel the evil beings, for protection and so forth from the evil
didn't know
individuals,
that.
yes.
I thought it was like looking after, animals, looking after God's creation and so forth. Maybe they bring barakah to the house. They know it's to repel evil. Wow,
Yeah.
learn something new every day. From WhatsApp, Sheikh, yes, they said. Okay, hold on. Okay, in regards to the Imam Jawad question, Hizr or Hiraz, Taweez of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. If it falls on the floor, I have to perform Islam. Okay, I understand now. Right, Sheikhna, this happens specifically. Pakistan is very common in India as well, the subcontinent. Taweez, which is like a prayer or something that they put in a leather pouch and they wear it around their neck or they wear it on their arm for protection and so forth. Some people have like a box with Quranic ayah inside or something like that. Sometimes a thin scroll with on the paper they'll write a Quranic ayah or something and then they'll put it in the scroll and wear it as a form of protection. If that falls on the floor by accident, do you have to perform a salah?
I mean, I haven't heard
like
anything about this
kafara.
rule particularly because we have this Hirz of Imam Jawad in Iran, Iraq. They do it, they write it on the, I think, reindeer's skin or something, some kind of animal skin.
Yeah.
Halal and muslim, and they would write it and with saffron and so forth. We have as well, as I've said, in Iraq, Iran. But in overall, when it falls to pray, I haven't heard such a thing at all, no.
Fair enough. What about, Sheikh, if you have a aqiq, sometimes there's something scribed on the aqiq, whether it's like Ya Ali or Quranic ayah or something, or, bracelets or bangles with verses of dua or verses of Quran, or again, hiraz or taweez. If that falls on the floor, is there a kafara to pay? Do you have to pray salah or anything?
As I've said, I haven't heard such thing at all.
Interesting.
Maybe it's like a tradition between the people, for example.
Maybe.
I haven't heard anything in terms of the ahkam rulings by the fuqaha.
From WhatsApp, Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. What's the ruling of the various forms of alcohol that cause intoxication? I think all intoxicating alcohol is najis, cannot be bought, cannot be sold, cannot be carried, cannot be delivered.
Brewed and so forth.
And brewed and so forth can't be made.
These are all types of acts which has la'an from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. La'an Rasulullah sharibuha wa gharisuha wa saqiha. It's all been sent la'an upon for those who get involved in the process of delivering and giving the selling and buying the alcohol.
Yes. Sheikhna, if one deliberately utters the dhikr before bowing to the level required for ruku', or if one deliberately raises his head from the state of ruku' before finishing the obligatory dhikr, what would be the ruling? Good question, Sheikhna. When we pray salah, sometimes, first of all, when we pray in jama'ah, we're always told to be behind the imam in jama'ah. However, when we're praying, whether we're praying mufrad or in jama'ah, we recite. Unfortunately, some of us are in a bit of a hurry and so forth. We want to get the prayer quickly over done with. We've got responsibilities to attend to. So, I've seen it sometimes. They'll say, they'll like, Allahu Akbar, or, they'll say halfway down, Allahu Akbar. They'll move before they speak. Same with ruku', they haven't finished reciting the dhikr, but they've got stood up. Or, before they've even gotten to the position, on the way, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdih. What is the Islamic ruling on this, Sheikh?
I mean, for the salah, there are conditions and wajib conditions when it comes to the positions in salah. You have to be standing when you're reciting the surah and the dhikr. You can't be moving to the left or to the right while reciting. You have to be also stable in the position of ruku' and sujood. And then mention the dhikr of the ruku' or the sujood. You cannot say them while you're moving up or down, for example. So these are wajib, let's say, states in salah. Positions in salah, they have to be motionless, stable, without any movement. Otherwise, the salah would be batil and void if you actually said the dhikr of the ruku' while you're going towards the ruku', or dhikr of the sujood while you're going down towards the acts of prostration and sujood. You have to be stable and then you start saying the dhikr of sujood or ruku'.
From YouTube, Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. What is the etiquette for making Hazrat Abbas, Abu Fadil, the wasila. How do we structure our prayer, our dua? When we use Abu Fadil, may God bless him, alayhi salam, when we use him as a wasila, what is the best way to invoke him in our du'as?
I mean, you can ask him when you go to his zarih, for example, for your hajat. We have seen many Arab Bedouins who came and they had, let's say, disabled son or daughter. And they would say to the Abbas alayhi salam that I'm going to leave him here, I'm going to have lunch and come back. And the Mursaleen and the Awsiya and the Vicegerents and the Imam alayhi salam. So they are the best individuals to go back and ask for our hajat. But again, bi'idhnillah. As Isa said, that I cure, I raise the dead bi'idhnillah. Yes. It's in the Quran, it's a Quranic notion. Yeah. Nobody can reject it. Otherwise they would say, oh well, even na'udhu billah, Isa did na'udhu billah against Allah. You know, or partner with Allah Azza wa Jalla, because Allah can raise the dead, Isa can do the same thing. But Isa made this specific exception, bi'idhnillah, by Allah's will, by Allah's permission. Of course, it's not permissible. So you have to see the urf, the norm, that if this is singing, of course. If it's no, it's manqaba, as you have in Pakistan, then it's halal. There's no issue with it. But if it's tend to be singing, then of course things will change. The hukum will change. Because the hukum follows the mawdu', the subject. If the subject changes, it becomes haram.
Sheikh, which verse in the Holy Quran forbids gambling?
We have in Surah number 5, verse 90, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu inna al-khamra wal-maysira wal-ansab wal-azlam rajsun min amal shaitan fajtanibuh. O you who believe, intoxicants, gambling and other acts, of course, are the acts of shaitan. Then avoid them. Ijtinab, you have to avoid it, because this shows that Allah is asking the mu'mineen to avoid, and it's wajib, it's a call of wajib to be implemented by the mu'mineen and mu'minat, to avoid gambling, to avoid drinking alcohol and so forth. There's a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He was asked by one of the ashab, في قول الله عز وجل يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل. Surah number 4, verse 29. قال عليه السلام هو القمار. O you who believe, do not consume each other's wealth unjustly. The Imam said the meaning is this unjustly wealth consumed is gambling. So if somebody pays £10,000, let's say, or £1,000, betting to get back £2,000, then this extra £1,000 that he won due to the betting or gambling, the Imam said this is, or the Quran says, and the Imam interprets the Quran, that this is consuming wealth unjustly.
I see.
In other words, it's a haram wealth. You have to avoid it. So it's very clear, Quran, Hadith, the Holy Prophet, his Sunnah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that gambling is absolutely haram, all types of gambling.
Sheikh, is it permissible for an individual to watch an autopsy of a Muslim body for learning purposes? This is given that the learning for the university medical student is not possible without an autopsy. Of course, the student does not engage in the dissection procedure, but only watches. And if learning is dependent on participating in dissection, and it is not possible to convince the authorities concerned to arrange for the dissection of the body of non-Muslims, is it then permissible to participate in dissection?
And overall, just to watch, just to attend and watch and learn, that's permissible. I think this was asked a couple of months ago. One can actually watch and learn. But to participate in, let's say, cutting the limbs and so forth, that's not permissible unless if there's like compulsion. In other words, if the practical dissection would rely that this individual needs to learn, so he can actually or she can actually, because we have lack of doctors, let's say, in this field, and there's a need for it. So there's a compulsion, let's say, compelled. Somebody's compelled. We need such doctors to carry out such surgery. Then, of course, hukm will be changed.
Dissection of the body and autopsy is necessary for learning the cause of death. It is only with dissection we know, oh, this person was poisoned, or this person died from a heart attack, or this person, was stabbed in these, places and so forth. So we can potentially turn a death into a murder and an investigation to find out who the culprit is and so forth. So dissection in general, Sheikhna, autopsies, is that okay? Is that halal?
As I've said, if there's a need for it, if there's a compulsion for it, then the Sharia would allow. There's actually a hadith that states there's nothing that Allah Almighty has prohibited except that He has permitted for those who are compelled. Even somebody who is dying and there's no meat except maita, dead corpse.
Yeah.
He can consume to the amount that he needs.
Required to live.
Just because he can't say this haram. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to die. It's like committing suicide.
Yeah.
So you have to keep yourself alive, even by eating the haram meat, for example, just to keep alive for the next for 48 hours, for example. So whatever is haram in this states of compulsion or necessity, then of course it becomes halal. Because one, for example, who is in such a state needs to prioritize. So what is the priority? Let's say to save somebody who's drowning, or to continue my praying for my salah, for example. So one should look at the most important than the unimportant thing. So that's what they discuss in fiqh. The most important is prioritized compared to the important.
Sheikh, if a person dies and has a debt and leaves behind a wealth that is liable to zakah, what would be the ruling in this case?
Well, indeed, they have to deduct the amount of zakah from the inheritance before they actually pay the heirs the inheritance. You have to make sure that this is paid initially, because these are huququllah azza wa jal. You have to take it from the actual irith, aslu tarika, as they say.
Yeah.
Original inheritance, and then you pay it, and then you divide it to the.
From YouTube, Sheikh, can a girl change her religion to Islam just to get married to a Muslim boy? The main intention was marrying the boy. The main intention was marrying the boy.
It has to be, على كل حال, a complete, conversion to Islam. You know that this is not a true convert, let's say. No, but she believes in Allah Azza wa Jalla and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's the shahadatain. That should be suffice. But to be genuine, of course. Otherwise, if it's a lie or if it's a cheat, for example, how could you marry this individual who is still from non-Ahl Kitab, for example? Just shahada al-zahir, an apparent, visible shahada saying that she wants to convert to Islam. That's it. That should be enough if it's genuine, of course, saying the shahada. Because she might, leave Islam afterwards, after she got whatever she wants, for example. So it has to be something genuine على كل حال. Not as a lie or a cheat, for example. شهادة لا إله إلا الله أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله.
Sheikh, who is a nasibi? We hear this word sometimes, a nasibi. What does that mean?
The nasibi who openly shows and exposes the enmity against Al Muhammad salamullah alayhi by cursing, na'udhu billah, by sending a line. The hadith, interestingly, says with this regard, from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, in a long hadith, he says, "An-nasib man nasaba lakum." The nasibi is the one who establishes enmity against you, the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ أَنَّكُمْ تَتَوَلَّوْنَ. And he knows that you follow us as A'immat of Ahlul Bayt. So it's like showing enmity against the Shia, by bombing them, killing them, torturing them. But they actually want the Imams themselves. So they're not just killing the Shia because they're Shia. But if they had the chance, they would kill Ahlul Bayt and do the same thing with Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, as they did with Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala. They butchered him and his family members. So الناصب من نصب لكم وهو يعلم أنكم تتولون وأنكم من شيعة, and that you are from our Shia. That's why they are nasibi. Other hadith, a man says, one of the ashab, that I heard Imam Abu Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam saying, إن عدو علي عليه السلام لا يخرج من الدنيا حتى يجرع جرعة من الحميم. That the enemy of Ali alayhi salam, this nasibi, he won't leave this dunya. In other words, he is between the dunya and the akhirah in the time of ihtidar, on his deathbed, just minutes before he passes away. He would be given an extremely hot water from the Jahannam, na'udhu billah. They would quench his thirst, in other words, with hamim, which is a very hot water of na'udhu billah, Jahannam, because of his wrong aqidah, because of his enmity against Ahlul Bayt and specifically Imam Ali alayhi salam.
I see. Sheikh, if one deposits the khums sum in a bank account and some interest is earned on the sum, to whom does the interest belong?
As we said before, that in some conditions, some circumstances, the interest can be given or taken. For example, if it's your first mortgage house, you can actually buy a house, your first home, by mortgage, by paying interest. These are exemptions in terms of, or receiving the interest from the non-Muslim banks, for example. We've said this many times in detail. So if you have an amount of khumus and you put it in the bank and you have now interest, of course, the interest is for the khumus and not for yourself. So you have to pay it with the khumus received.
Yeah. Sheikh, if one has enough money to go to Hajj and return to his hometown, but he does not own a house, is the Hajj of a higher priority or buying a house?
Well, Hajj is part of the wajibat, furu'ud din, like salah, like fasting. So you must go to Hajj if you are capable, mustati', man istata'a ilayhi sabila. If you have this istata'a and capability of Hajj in terms of money, passport, visa, health, and so forth, then it becomes wajib. You have to go this year Hajj. There's no way you can waive it. So unless you'll be in difficulty in terms of the property. Let's say you are in a, let's say, bailiff situation. You'll be homeless. You have to, I don't know, sleep somewhere else. It's going to be very difficult. And of course, this discomfort, situation and state, of course, one can actually remain and buy the house or somehow not to go to Hajj in exception circumstances and situations, of course.
From YouTube, Sheikhna, is marriage permissible between a Shia and any Ahlul Sunnah?
Yes, indeed, it's allowed. But if it's with a Shia lady with a Sunni man, then of course she must make sure that she doesn't change her aqidah. She remains with even the man. If he's a Shi'i with a Sunni girl, they have to make sure that they keep their aqidah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, to stay in that aqidah and not to change it. Otherwise, it's not allowed.
Awesome. Quick reminder to all our viewers that you can send in your questions via the WhatsApp. QR code is there. Sorry. QR code is right there. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section. Inshallah, Sheikh and I will be able to discuss and answer your questions. We've got about 5 to 8 minutes left, Sheikhna. If one is in an area on earth where earthquakes occur once or more every day, is it mandatory to perform multiple Salat al-Ayat?
No, it's not mandatory or wajib for the one to perform salah for every quake. You have multiple quakes, let's say, within 7-8 minutes, for example.
Mhm.
You have 3 quakes within 7-8 minutes. No, just one salat ayat would be sufficient. Well, as a mustahab precaution, should be performed like once a day. So it depends really.
Oh, once a day?
Yeah.
Wow, if it's frequent,
if it's,
like daily?
Yeah.
Ah,
But anyhow, one salah would be sufficient
fair.
for multiple quakes.
Fair enough. From YouTube, Sheikhna, what is the best gift or hadiyah one can give to the Ahlul Bayt? Dhikr, durood, niyaz, charity?
Well, as the Imam Rida salamullah said that to يتعلم علومنا ويعلمها الناس, to learn our knowledge and to spread this knowledge. If you are capable of, you don't have to go to Hawza or be alim or Mawlana. You can read some hadith of Ahlul Bayt and spread it. About, let's say, modesty, about akhlaq, about the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, or about Ziyarat al-Hussein alayhi salam, for example. Read Kamil Ziyarat. There's English translation as well.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
So much.
About Ziyarat of al-Hussein alayhi salam, that how much reward you will get. Spread this hadith. Read it within your family members. Teach them. Talk about it. You have Kitab al-Kafi, for example. A hadith about the imamah of Ahlul Bayt, how to strengthen your imam. Aqidah with the imamah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Read these hadith, spread it. That's it. One of the best deeds, indeed.
Sheikhna, when we pray Salah, and it's very common amongst the Shia that we have a thing called Qanut. Qanut is when, in the second rak'ah before ruku, we put our hands like this and we perform a dua. And I believe you can recite any dua you like. Is this mandatory? Is this a wajib part of the Salah?
No, Qanut is not wajib. Rather, it's mustahab in all prayers. But in anyhow, as a mustahab precaution, one should not miss the qunut in his salah. So, yeah, if you do it, it's better, of course.
Very interesting question here, Sheikh, from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
I live in China. Can I eat boiled egg in urine of a child, as this is a famous traditional food in China? So I'm not sure how old the child is, even if that matters. But if they're going to, urinate on eggs and then, they eat it, it's tradition there in China. As a Muslim, are you allowed to eat that?
Well, you cannot consume najasa. If there's a cross-contamination with the egg, with the actual egg, then of course it's najis. You cannot consume najis food. No, you can't. Unless you wash it and then consume it. It's a bit unpleasant, to be honest.
What if, Sheikhna, if it's on the egg shell, which is removed and thrown away anyway?
As I've said, you can wash it and eat it and consume it.
Okay.
Because it's najis, you have to wash it and remove the shell and eat the inside. But as I've said, it's unpleasant. You have boiling water would be, a clear water would be better.
Yeah, I wouldn't be appetizing towards myself, Sheikhna. Can one remain silent too long in salah, for example, to listen to the doorbell?
Well, if one remains silent in salah for a long time, that is not considered as praying. If you ask somebody what he's doing, he's just standing and pondering or reflecting, then of course this salah would be batil and void. You have to follow the salah's sequence and muwalat. You shouldn't leave a long gap in the salah. So you have to keep all the stages and parts of the salah continuously performed without any long gaps.
Sheikhna, if in an event such as a solar or lunar eclipse or earthquake takes place and women is in the state of menstruation, is it mandatory upon her to perform Salat al-Ayat?
In this case, she has no obligation in terms of performing the salah inside the time of the
prescribed time,
the eclipse, let's say, or outside al-qada. No, she is away from this act. But as a precaution, mustahab.
Qada?
Yeah, to perform it after she is clean and tahir. Yeah, it's a mustahab. It's not wajib.
On the topic of lunar eclipse, I think there is one this week. I read up. I think it's on the 14th or 18th of October. There will be an eclipse, Sheikh. From WhatsApp, is it permissible to tell a lie when there is danger threatening your life?
You see, it depends. As I've said, I read the hadith just minutes ago about that the haram sometimes becomes halal because of the compelled situation. You know, there's nothing that Allah Almighty has prohibited except that He has permitted it for those who are compelled. I mean, Ammar ibn Yasir, when he was caught by the mushrikeen of Mecca, and they said to him, you know, praise our gods, you know, u'lu hubal, you know, praise Hubal and Lat and Uzza.
Yeah.
And he actually did it. Although he had a great means of iman in his heart. He was a mu'min and top of the mu'mineen, one of the top of the Sahaba. Radwanullah alayh. But he said it, but you know, and that's taqiyya, that's one of the evidence in Quran and Sunnah and Hadith, that Ammar ibn Yasir practically, he actually implemented the taqiyya. And the Prophet praised him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he said, and adu fa'ud, that if they came back to you, do the same thing. Because to protect you as a mu'min believer, so they can actually use him for supporting Islam. And he did so until he was killed and became shaheed in the Battle of Siffin with Muawiyah, where he was on the side of Ali alayhi salam. So in some cases you have to, you know, sometimes it's wajib, sometimes it's allowed. It depends on the fiqhi perspective, you know, where it sits actually. So that's one of the examples as mentioned. But of course you can't lie to your teacher, for example, or cheat, for example, to pass your exam. That's of course different and not accepted.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. Inshallah, and I say inshallah because it does happen here at Imam Hussein TV. We do get technical difficulties, but inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be back on Wednesday, 7 p.m. here on Imam Hussein TV 3. If you have any questions you'd like to send in, please send them in via the WhatsApp. Please send them in via the Facebook and YouTube comment section, inshallah. If we didn't answer your question, we do apologize, inshallah. Those questions will be taken and rolled over onto Wednesday's episode, and inshallah we'll be able to answer them then. Until then, have a good week, stay safe, and inshallah we'll see you again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Jiddu, I need to tell you a secret. I had an exam today and I cheated on the exam, and to be honest, I feel like it's eating me up inside as if it's haram.